Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey, and we are both battling in our own way. Adrian with trains running behind him at regular intervals, and me with an absolute convoy of tractors whizzing up and down the road like tractors are going out of fashion at a rate of one every 16 minutes.
Do you think there's a tractor convention on? Have we picked the wrong night to do this?
Do you know what? I think it is. I think somebody needs to have a word with the government because they're a blight on the countryside, tractors. I don't know what the hell they're doing round here anyway.
Well, I mean, the countryside is a blight on the countryside.
Exactly.
Build more tower blocks.
Unlike me, I'm a blot on the landscape, something completely different. Anyway, this is episode 199 or 199 if we're in a sale situation.
199.
All right, mate. Get down to Deptford Draylons and get your podcast here. Only 199. Which means next week, big
Hang
special.
on, I'm just doing the math. 199 carry one. By Jiminy, it's 200.
Anyway, we are a podcast that kind of reviews comedy programs. It is a review podcast.
Yes, you still 199 episodes into this celebrated podcast. You're still slightly cautious about calling it a review.
Only because we kind of do that bit at the end, but only because it is I was going to say only because it is a very personal opinion of what we're slabbing. But then that's what a review is, isn't it?
I was going to say, Mark Kermode does he even pretend to give a thoroughly objective review? He does his best, but it's coming through his eyes, isn't it? And
yeah, sometimes through his mouth.
Yeah,
sometimes through his commode. I mean, it's
incommodious sometimes.
Is that a word? It is.
It is. Look it up.
Oh,
Google it.
I will. Okay. Don't look it up, Grandad. That's old fashioned. Anyway, we choose alternately a show to slab, and it was my turn to choose last week. We'll tell you what we think, and then we'll give it a score at the end out of 5 each, giving it a grand total out of 10. Play a couple of clips between now and the end. And the show that I chose was actually a suggestion, which is quite nice. And it is a show called The Secret World, and radio show from Bill Dare, a man called Bill Dare, who, if people are big fans of Dead Ringers, then they will be very familiar with that. So before we do any of that, some comedy news. A story that, I'm going to say that I found, but it was all over social media. This is something I'm guessing that you would be across, Adrian, have you before I suggested it.
I am now. You've asked me to be. No, I have to say it didn't find me, but then had you actively gone to Twitter as opposed to hearing it on old-fashioned steam radio or TV news?
I saw it in the trending on Twitter that Ricky Gervais was trending, and thought, is that about his new? Because I know he got a new Netflix special, but of course it's caused a furore, hasn't it? Because he's got jokes in there about trans people, and some people have got upset about it and been very vocal about it. But the one thing that you can talk about that if you want to. Obviously, you can talk about whatever you want. But the one thing that struck me as quite fascinating was that 2 old videos, one of James Acaster and the other of Nish Kumar, surfaced, kind of slagging off Ricky Gervais and saying that he's not a very good comedian. And it was just that kind of, I thought, wow, is that what we want in comedy? Is that good for business that maybe people will be talking? Because a lot of people on Twitter replying to Nish Kumar, who said it's disgusting, all the rest of it, said, thanks for giving me a heads up of what to watch. So
yes, it
kind of had the reverse effect. But you got any thoughts on that? This whole kind of comedians critiquing comedians? It's bad enough we do it from as far as comedians are concerned.
And we're not comedians.
Exactly.
Can we make that clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to dig into, but on that particular question, comedians are entitled to have views about other comedians. But what's interesting is there's sort of, if I try to come up with another industry where people comment on other people in their industry. I mean, in the construction industry, do people? I suppose they wouldn't take off on social media if you said that Bill bloke. He's not very good at plastering, is he?
You call that
and
a
then
war.
someone else pulls it.
You call that a war? I'm phoning Pink Floyd, mate. I'm not having this. What about music? What about art? What about if artists start saying? What if people started saying? I mean, maybe they did. I don't know. But what if an artist said? What if Tracy Emin said? Traditional or fine art is not art. What I do is art, and anyone else is so and so. Jack Smith, whatever it is, he's an idiot. Do you know what I mean? He's that.
I used that. That was a hypothetical. Can I just clarify?
Well, I quite like Jack Smith's work, to be honest with you. Yeah.
It is an interesting one. I tell you, I can't not then go into the clip. Did you actually watch this clip from 2019 of James Acaster?
Yeah.
Because he starts by, now, he could say it's irony, and that's fine. Here am I critiquing a comedian, but hey, it's fair game. He's having a go at Ricky Gervais.
He's having a go at Ricky Gervais now. Yeah, go on.
As a good learned colleague of mine says, opinions are like a-holes. Yes. Everyone's got one. So here I am, A for Adrian Hole, probably digging one, even as I speak. James Acaster starts that clip from 2019 dissing, or apparently dissing, or we're meant to go with the flow of what he appears to be doing. He's wearing shades like a rock star, and that's part of the particular shtick on that night, I think, and that tour perhaps, but I couldn't be absolutely sure on that. But he has a go at older people and Christians. But in the context, it is a joke about, I've looked at my demographic and basically it's crap or something like that. And that's quite funny to me, the idea that a comedian doesn't like the people he's attracting. Did you find that funny before we go further into that?
I found nothing about it funny at all.
Are you sure you hadn't told yourself, oh, this guy's trying to be on the side of the angels, I mustn't enjoy it?
No, I mean, if you said, is it worthy? I'd go, oh, yes, it was worthy. If that's your particular cause, and stunning and brave or whatever the latest terminology is. But in terms of, is it funny? I didn't, and I look at the comments when I see these things. And the particular website that he was on, the comments, the vast majority was saying, "Is this supposed to be funny?" It's saying what you feel isn't necessarily comedy, is it? Because I was quite curious, because it's the first time I've seen James Acaster. I've never seen him, and a lot of people rave about him. But did you find it funny then?
I found that gag itself funny, but then I found that kind of took the moral ground from under his feet, or certainly, should we say, muddied the waters. I'm changing my metaphor there, but because to then lay into Ricky Gervais, from a superior position, apparently. And the trouble is, I haven't seen the latest Netflix show from Ricky Gervais, but of course, neither in 2019 had James Acaster seen it.
I'd seen a clip of it, and I must admit, I nearly wet myself. I did. I think it's one of his best so far, really. But right. Yeah.
And remind us what this one's called, the new one?
It's called Supernature.
Right. Because he did animals before or something like that.
He's done animals. He's done about three or four. This is about the fourth, isn't it? Fourth or fifth one.
Oh, I did see one, I saw.
Science.
It was Humanity is one of them from a few years back. But anyway, so the difficult thing is, okay, someone's dusted off this clip of James Acaster, but it doesn't specifically apply to Ricky Gervais, but you could say the Ricky Gervais brand. It's a red rag to a bull. If you say to Ricky Gervais, you can't say that, he'll say, why can't I say that?
Yeah,
and the old free speech argument. But that's not where you're coming from. Can I say, by the way, I should mention Alan Partridge. We've tried to get through an entire show without, but we failed for the last 20. I didn't follow up on having seen him live. But we don't have to do that this instant. But it'd be nice to do it at some point in the show.
Why don't we do it? Why don't we on the 200th episode, instead of the comedy news? Why don't we do that for a change?
Okay, you're on.
Okay. God, that was easy.
You wanted a fight, didn't you?
Yeah. Come on then. He said, yeah, all right then. I sort of completely disarmed me.
Yes.
The problem is that I have with it, I think, is the kind of, it's like I say, taking a moral stance is not necessarily comedy, and I think Nish Kumar is another comedian who I don't get at all. I don't find funny at all, and
Right.
I don't really follow him at all. And I think that's the difference between the people who are left leaning in politics and right leaning. There's a push from the left that people want to cancel and stop people speaking who they feel are to the right. But the people on the right kind of just don't watch the people on the, and that's with me with Nish Kumar. I don't really kind of follow his work, but people were commenting and saying, "Oh, it's great of Nish Kumar to take a stance against Ricky Gervais, but he's big friends with Jimmy Carr." And some
Nish Kumar is.
Yeah, and some would
Right,
say, why is he not taking a stance against him? Well, because he's good friends with him, presumably. I don't know. But yeah, I just thought it's dragging the politics into it, and I think whenever you do that, that's going to suck the life out of any comedy, isn't it? Do you think?
It's a shame, isn't it? Because comedy at its best can be a really a uniting thing. And in fact, that was part of my idea when I floated the idea to you of the Comedy Slab. Because let's say we don't always see eye to eye politically, although how much is just bear baiting each other, which is a jolly good sport. I don't know, but we do agree about a fair bit. I don't know if you would say roughly half the shows that we see that we agree on.
Yeah.
So, but whether or not that's stat, you can argue about that. But that shows there is somewhere in the world of comedy, there is something we can agree on.
Although we don't, when we don't agree, we don't fall out about it, do we? That's the difference as well, is that, I know families that have been divided because of Brexit and crazy things like, you think it's not worth that, is it really? I don't think. But yeah, it just struck me. I just thought, I don't know, I'm a bit uncomfortable by comedians taking cheap shots at other comedians to try and do whatever they're trying to do, whether it's raise their profile or get their message out there, or whatever I don't know what they're trying to do, so I don't really know. But it just felt a bit stinky to me. Anyway,
shall we get on with slabbing a show?
Yeah, The Secret World radio show. Bill Dare suggested, I have to say, via our YouTube channel. Thank you very much to Robin Tyson, who sent us a note, and he said, "Search for The Secret World, BBC Sound." He said, "I love this. Circa 2012, it's got a more structured format than Dead Ringers, and a variety of voices with much less emphasis on the politics." So thanks, Robin. Do appreciate the suggestion, and just to prove that we do take people up on them, this is what we're doing this week, and I'm pretty glad that he did, because it's one I'd forgotten about, really. Had you come across this before? Is this one that was on your radar?
I'm very grateful for the suggestion. I do enjoy Dead Ringers. I was confessing last week that I thought I'd been a bit hard on it in the one Comedy Slab we reviewed it, but I welcomed it with open arms, because I've got a lot of time for. Well, I think impressionism works so well on the radio. I'll say the obvious. TV, it's the classic thing, like the John Thompson character. It was in Fast Show. 3 hours in makeup and I become, and then and it turns out he can't act.
Yeah.
So you think, well, you've got a good makeup designer.
Yeah.
But you can't quite match it with your acting prowess. But that was the joke. So on the radio, of course, you don't have to muck about with makeup, and it is down to the qualities of the voice. So yes, I was well up for it, and the mention of Bill Dare, well, that's a mark of quality in my book. So yes, I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, I must admit, I've gone back to listen to Brian Gulliver's Travels, which I think we slabbed, which was actually written by Bill Dare.
Right, I'd forgotten that.
And always very impressed with his writing and his imagination. Very, very clever guy. Anyway, talking about the sound of it, shall we have a clip, and then we'll get an idea. It's done in like a kind of almost like diary format, isn't it, really, in a way? Because you kind of get time codes for what's happening. So for the first visit into the secret world, because we're slabbing series 2, episode 1, we head over to Alan Carr's residence at 6:23 in the morning.
Hello.
Alan Carr.
Who is this? Do you know what time it is?
Special branch. Your flat is surrounded by armed officers.
Oh, come on. Who is this?
Look out the window, Mr. Carr.
Oh, crumbs.
You see the marksman on the rooftops?
I'm having a nightmare.
Any
What-
moment now, officers will enter by force.
Oh my God! Oh! What the hell's going on? Mind the yucca.
Alan Carr,
Yes?
We're arresting you for activities linked to Islamist networks.
What is going on
we've
here?
been watching you for years, Carr, thinking he's up to something. But then we thought, no, he's not even Muslim.
And then it clicked. Who would suspect a non-Muslim of being an Islamic extremist?
Only a bunch of idiots.
The perfect cover. So, you've been under 24-hour surveillance. Every contact, every phone call, every liaison.
That must have been... You do realise I'm gay?
Oh, do you know this, Walton?
News to me, Sarge.
Make a note of it.
Right.
What's that?
It's an Egg McMuffin.
Oh, for-
I may be speaking out of turn, but your sexual purification is yet another stroke of genius.
Yeah.
Well, it's been called many things, but I don't...
Say I want to start an Islamist terror cell in London. I'm going to recruit the last person the police would suspect. To wit...
Me. Because I'm not a Muslim, I'm gay, and I'm on the telly.
Exactly. I like to think we're always one step ahead of Obama bin Laden.
But you mean Osama?
Oh, first name terms, are we?
Well, thank you, Robin. And what a beautiful, what a beautiful sort of visual that sets up in your mind. And I will forever remember the phrase, mind the yucca.
Mind the yucca. It's awesome, isn't it? I mean,
It's lovely.
the quality of the impression before you do anything else
Yeah,
is sublime, isn't it? Don't you think? It's
it is. Particularly going from 0 to 60, you know, he's just woken up. So he's got that gravelly sort of
yeah.
early morning feel, and then suddenly goes full tilt once his door's being kicked in. As you would wake up quite quickly, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's got that extra authentic car sound to it. I don't mean the sort we get passing your window.
I mean, that was a real old gag as well, wasn't it? Where they get the name wrong and then he corrects me. He goes, "Oh, you're on first name terms, are you?" I mean, that's just like such an old gag, but beautiful. I don't know. Just I thought it was still delicious. But should we have a headline from you before we go any further?
Oh gosh, yes. Secret world. Glad it's an open secret now.
Oh, okay.
Not to set the world alight, but you get the idea.
I hear you barking, big dog. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you mean you like it? That's what was.
Yeah. So, well, I could have had the headline, I like it, but it doesn't quite sound like a newspaper headline. It's meant to sound like a tabloid headline. I think I didn't quite hit the spot there. But you get the idea, yes.
Where does it score for you? Where does it score points? I mean, obviously the impressions, and I mentioned, was it a couple of episodes ago? I said about how impressionists kind of, I get really kind of nervy as to and embarrassed for people doing impressions. You know, when they at the point where they go, "Oh, I'm an impressionist," they go, "Oh my God, oh no, here we go." But
Or
then,
do you mean your mates down the pub, or real proper pros?
No, people when they're like, "Oh, you're doing impressions," like, "Oh yes, I like to do a few," and you think, "Oh my God," you know, like on a chat show or something like that. You think, "Oh, what's coming up now?" "Oh, Betty, the cat's done a whoopsie behind the piano." And you think, he hasn't been on telly for 40 years doing that. But
You might have to Google it, yeah.
But this, I mean, I struggle to find one that I thought was a bit off kilter. I mean, you know, from William Hague, Charlotte Church, Al Pacino, Lionel Blair, I thought was a bit sketchy. But then he's a difficult
I
one
was
to
going
do.
to say, I was priceless. That was my favourite. Well, we've got, I think, quite a contrasting clip a bit later on,
Yeah.
our second final clip, and that's great. I won't tread on its toes because I do want to praise the Lionel Blair one, because I'm really disappointed to hear you have a hesitation around that. What is your hesitation?
I think the problem is that because Lionel Blair's been going for so long, his voice has changed over a period of time, and that was the only one I just thought, oh, is that? It didn't ruin it for me. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't that far off, but I just thought, oh, is that not? I mean, like Alan Carr, like I say, John Humphreys, Al Pacino. All of them, you know, you kind of think, even like bit part players like Barack Obama, they were just bang on, weren't they? They were nailed on so tight. I was just fantastic, and that was the only one I just thought, oh, is that a bit wishy washy? But
I was also trying to look up as we speak how old The Secret World is. I mean, it's not old, but
2009, isn't it? I think
right. So we're talking Obama, as you say. So it would have to be a few years back. So, well, I think we can allow a bit of back aging, as it were, there, he would have sounded different to how you and I might have last heard Lionel Blair. Am I allowed to say what the gag is? I mean, it's a minor spoiler because you'll still enjoy the sketch. Which is a confusion between Lionel Blair and Tony Blair.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound funny when I say it, but boy, they've actually dug into it. Bill Dare's beautifully written it. And it returns as well and develops, and you're not left thinking, oh, that's a bit of a cheap shot. Quite the reverse, I thought.
No, I think by the time he gets to a dance studio in Jerusalem to try and bolster the Middle Eastern peace process, I think by tap dance,
you're with him, aren't you?
I think you're there, aren't you? Really, you're kind of thinking, wow, I'm with this all the way. But
can I say though, I know you're slightly tongue in cheek there, but at the same time, it is beautifully done. Did you notice when Lionel Blair, or is it John Coleshaw, I think, playing him?
Possibly. I've given up. The voices were so good.
Well, it doesn't
matter.
No. And that's a measure of quality, isn't it? You don't know which one it is. But anyway, whoever it is, he's actually performing the pirouette. Did you notice that? I'm sure you did, because you're very sound acute. You actually hear him turn around. Yeah. And that's the difference between, the old cliche is your four actors gathering around the BBC microphone and turning the pages of the script. It was nothing like that. They'd actually acted it out, and you can hear them act out the dancing. I was hilarious.
It was a really tight production, wasn't it? I mean, the whole. Even the setups for each one. I mean, you mentioned the confusion over Lionel Blair and Tony Blair. The Alan Carr one runs through the whole of the episode, and then there's a delicious payoff at the end, isn't there?
Oh yes,
and you kind of think this is like you say, this is not just a collection of sketches. This has been formed into an episode, hasn't it?
And that's the difference with Dead Ringers, which they have to turn around much more quickly because it's a reaction to the news. And I as I'm sort of touching, I enjoyed Dead Ringers. You used to enjoy it, I think you said when we slabbed it, but and you kind of feel it might have gone off or been eclipsed by events. I think it's still Dead Ringers is still very, for me, a very strong show. But and we have Robin to thank for this. Is a comment, Robin's comment with the request that we put this on the slab is bang on. I mean, it's a different type of show, and I think it's very complimentary. I don't know that. I suppose it's. Did Robin say it was less formatted? I suppose it is in some senses.
It's a different format, isn't it? I think
there is a structure there. I like the fact that we come back to some of these scenarios, not all of them. Some are just a single sketch, but running gags. I mean, I love them.
It takes you through a day, doesn't it? And I thought that worked really well. I really like that whole, the chronology of it, and like I say, and even that they kind of did a wash up at the end with some of the strands that they've been going through. And I mean, if I had to choose one, and I don't know if this is a fair thing to say, because you're right, they are very different vehicles. But if I had to choose a setup, it would be this over Dead Ringers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like you say, Dead Ringers is doing a very different thing in a very different way, isn't it?
Yeah. What they have in common for me is very high production values.
Yeah.
But you can tell they've had time to sort of reflect on the sketches in Secret World. And I thought you were going to go on to say it. I think you sort of touched on it, but they created very believable scenarios in their own terms. Because if you're thinking, oh, well, you wouldn't confuse Lionel Blair with Tony Blair, you've got a crackling on the line. So they've thought through that. And then Lionel Blair says something that would give away he's not Tony Blair. And okay, you have to cut them some slack, and it's comedy, and it's it's fictional, so it's not perfect, but it does. Do you see what I mean? It does stand on its own terms.
I mean, that was probably the most out there of all the setups, wasn't it? I mean, the other one was, or one of the other ones was, John Humphreys being harangued by Al Pacino. Al Pacino, who is this raving conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, no, I did wonder. You might think I'm a little bit slow on this, but it's perfectly possible that certain showbiz people, they do come up with some slightly unhinged theories. I asked my girlfriend whether Al Pacino had that kind of reputation, because it's perfectly possible, and equally it's perfectly possible that it's not the case at all. She thought the latter, but it absolutely wasn't necessary for the sketch to work. And you could say it's even funnier because it's the further it is from the real Al Pacino. In a way, that's the comedy stretch.
That is the thing for me. That's the thing that I loved about it was that it is a long way from reality, but there are touchstones of reality that make it plausible.
But I do wonder if Impressionism is eating itself. I don't have the worry that you have, that everyone's going to do Frank Spencer, Ubetti. I couldn't hear Al Pacino without thinking of Stella Street and John Sessions, rest his soul, because he's since died, doing Al Pacino in the corner store that is Stella Street with Mick and Keith and David Bowie making some changes and so on. Did you have that problem, or is that just me?
No,
funny brain?
No, I kind of. I mean, I did want him to go hoo-ha, but he didn't. He didn't do that. It wasn't that out there, was it really? But no, I found myself very quickly being sucked into the premise. And being immersed in it, and as you say, I mean, the judicious use of sound effects and ambience and all that sort of stuff. You kind of really went with. Well, I found I really went with it, and found myself like kind of being totally immersed in it, and thought, oh, hang on, I'm supposed to be making notes here or whatever. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah, well, that's a good problem, isn't it? If you forget to make notes, you are actually enjoying it.
Yeah. But it was just like, and then you kind of like, the first, I can't remember what the first one, his first conspiracy theory was, but then he went on to talk about the Diana conspiracy, and then he got one about Rod Hull, suggesting
that it wasn't the roof, or
suggesting that he didn't actually fall off the roof, he was pushed. And because he knew too much or something, I can't remember what it was, but and it was just that they kind of got, even the conspiracies that got more outlandish as time went on, didn't they? Really, but very clever
and good casting, of course. And John Humphreys at the time would have still been on the Today Show. There might have been a problem with doing other than having John as the sort of solid, grounded in facts kind of thing, which suits a journalist. So again, it speaks to sort of the detail and the believability. It's a very odd thing, isn't it? It's a contradictory space that the writers or all the creatives on the show have to go into, which is, on the one hand, you've got to have this structure that is largely believable.
Yeah.
I heard them say on I like to think of it as our sister podcast. And sadly, I think it's been a COVID casualty. I don't think they've done it recently, unless I've missed it. I haven't gone back to check. But Rule of Three is another wonderful podcast, and they were discussing Airplane, the movie,
right?
In one edition, and they said how you have, I think arbitrarily, let's say you have 9 things which are normal. You've got a normal airport, normal passengers going about their normal business, and then you change one thing, and immediately you've got a comedy. It tilts the world into something quite different and hilarious.
Brilliant. And whenever people mention Airplane, I always think of that scene in the air traffic control office where he hands the bald guy, a piece of paper and says, what do you make of this? And he said, well, I can make a hat, and he puts it on his head, or a bracelet, and he's like making things out of the paper. I just love it. Which reminds me, we must at one stage put Police Squad. Have you ever seen that?
I might have seen that. That was the series, wasn't it?
That's right.
He grew out.
I think he only went for one, maybe 2 series. I can't remember. I've got it in my collection, so it would be no hassle to do. But we must do that, because I think that's That's a particular brand of comedy that maybe you don't see every day. Should we have another clip and
I think it's high time. Yes,
have another listen. We're heading off. I thought of you when I did this. I thought we'll head off to a meeting room at the BBC Television Centre as was. There's so many things that are no longer there, aren't there? You think, God, it only wasn't that long
and that's
ago.
it's just over 10 years ago.
So many people have died, so many things that aren't there anymore. You think, wow. But yeah, off to a meeting room at BBC Television Centre, 5:56 in the evening, where some television executives are having a meeting with David Attenborough.
David, we'd like to talk about the next big nature series, kick some ideas around.
Yeah.
Yes, fine.
And kind of unpack the concept a little.
Sorry, what?
Oh, we've commissioned some audience research, and the under-24 audience is proving as elusive as ever.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's vital to get young people interested in nature.
Yes,
That's right.
definitely.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what we've discovered, David, is that young people like to watch other youngsters on television.
Right?
So we'd like to suggest having fewer middle-aged animals on your nature programme.
Definitely.
I'm sorry, but I'm not quite following.
We don't
the-
want so many old animals on your programme, Sir David.
Top of the list would be the Galapagos Tortoise, which can live to be 193.
Yeah.
That's pretty old.
That's really old, really old.
Well, that is one of the most fascinating things about it.
Yes, but none of our viewers live to be 193, and therefore they find it hard to identify with...
with something that old.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all in the research. The American box turtle would also be no.
Well, they can be very elderly.
Yeah, and then there's the...
What's that one? Amazon parrot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and there were an awful lot of elephants on the last show.
I didn't know you could get parrots through Amazon, but it just shows. Now, this, I have to say, this is, for me, and I don't know how you feel as a sometime broadcaster, in our pre-podcast lives, it is so close to the bone, so believable.
Yeah.
At
Sad.
one level, okay, they wouldn't specifically be talking about Galapagos turtles in those terms, but the kind of lunacy that you get introduced in meetings by people who don't understand. Well, they don't understand anything really.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of presenter type meetings, which I was naive enough to think when I started out in professional presentation on the wireless waves. I thought that you would be treated with the respect that you get from listeners. By and large, I'd say listeners are mostly lovely, in my experience, and they take you to their hearts and like you're a close personal friend. Even asking you to tell them how last night was. I went to a concert once and someone asked me the next day, "Oh, how did the concert go, Adrian?" I'd said it on air, but it was as if I'd said it over a pint with them.
Yeah.
But oh no, it turns out the presenter is bottom of the pile of priorities to, shall we say, the execs in broadcasting.
They're necessary evils, aren't they? I mean, I found
Yeah.
this one quite melancholic in a way because like you say, it's how the train of thought works, and whilst funny it is, if you've ever been in that situation, then it's equally sad, isn't it, as well, really? But I mean, they would probably be getting David Attenborough in if they thought they could get away with it and saying that he was too old is the reality of it. But
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I chose it because I thought, it was that one wasn't so out there. I think that's why I chose that clip. Really, was because
Right,
it was seeing it from the inside. You realise how close to home it is, don't you? I guess, really.
Yeah. But on shifting gears slightly in the way of a different way of appraising it. I mean, the naturalness of the dialogue.
Yeah.
The guy who might be, say, for the sake of argument, the channel controller or genre controller. Forgive my ancient mouth. A commissioning controller, editor. He started a sentence and someone picked up. And you virtually didn't notice. It went from male to female. You sort of noticed, but you sort of, it's only the second, third time I've heard that I've picked up on it, that how smooth it was. And it doesn't sound scripted. And yet I imagine every word is scripted.
It made me curious, this did, and some of the other ones as well, made me curious as to how they'd actually arrived at the setup for the whole thing, because There's another one where Charlotte Church is having a party, and
That is lovely.
and God rest his soul, Keith Harris and Orville is doing the catering. And Keith Harris is, I mean, it's really just basically so he can so he can do his act, isn't it? That's the gag of it all, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the curious thing was, and I think this from memory, around this time, this is when Keith Harris was having a bit of a comeback by doing the university circuit.
All right.
And so I do kind of wonder whether somebody read that and said, "Have you seen this? Keith Harris is doing quite well doing the university circuit." And then you think, "Oh, we wouldn't appeal to young people. Oh, who could we do that?" And that I almost felt like I got behind the thought process of how they'd set the whole thing up.
You've reverse engineered it.
I mean, I could be completely wrong, but it just kind of sort of fitted for me. I thought, yeah, actually, because I remember people saying, "Can't believe it, Keith Harris he's been really successful, and he's doing universities, and they love it, and they can't get enough of it." He sings the song at the end.
I wish I could fly.
Yeah, and so this is exactly, But what was nice was that there was kind of immediately you think, "Oh, this is all going to be about Charlotte Church." And then within the first few sentences, you realise that actually now this is about Keith Harris and him being the caterer for the event.
Yes. As he says, you've got to be flexible in this business.
Just exactly.
Versatile. Yeah, beautifully done, but also a bit painful as well, knowing just, from personal painful experience, that every presenter and virtually every freelance in broadcasting knows, just how fragile your position can be.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how secure it seems at times. At one point, I only needed 2 clients. I had nothing in writing with either of them. This is in my announcing days. And I carried on like that for a few years, which is probably a bit dangerous because you shouldn't get too cozy.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they both left me within 2 weeks. But, I'd had a good few years with them.
It's interesting. I saw an advert the other day for a travel person, on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
For what do you travel announcer, travel
presenter.
Reporter, presenter, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And I said to my wife, to Angelina, I said, "Do you know how much they pay for a travel presenter?" And she said, "Oh, I would have thought it'd be a lot, would it?" And I said, It's £9 an hour." And she's immediately said, "That's because they know the people who do it want exposure, want to get on the radio, and will do it for that."
Yeah.
That's
That's
awful.
minimum wage, is it not?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, you could go and earn more at Tesco.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, really.
Well, say that to Philip Schofield, who started as a travel presenter.
At Tesco.
Yes. He was in aisle 7, if I remember correctly.
But then he travelled to aisle 9, didn't he, as I recall?
Yeah, that was a promotion.
But
I think
avoiding
he
the
went up.
congestion at aisle 8.
Very good.
And he went round Isle of Sinclair.
I'll move us on to trying to give this a score. Do you think we're ready for scores?
I just want to ask you one question because I value your
do.
opinion, and it was something that occurred to me, and I thought, am I being a bit churlish here with this? I don't really know.
I very much doubt it.
I'm
sorry, you haven't said it yet.
I mean, me, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I know it's you.
It's ridiculous, I know. But I just thought, although I felt there was no padding in it, it was really tight, I kind of felt it could have done with another setup, another character, another sketch.
As in, it was the existing sketches were just a bit too long.
Well, either that or not going back to them so often. I think there were about 3 hits of Al Pacino, weren't there? And I thought, well, maybe could we have done 2 there? The gag was done after 2, wasn't it? I suppose, really, but although it became more outlandish, but.
Well, I so love the Lionel Blair one. I keep banging on about it. I would strongly recommend our listeners go to. Well, you'll give them all the blurb and the links, but it's on BBC Sounds as we speak.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have wanted to be without any of that. But, and this is where you've got the contrast with Dead Ringers, and maybe he's overcompensated. Bill Dare, I'm thinking, that he knows he's got time to develop themes here.
Yes,
here.
yeah, true.
And time to write them as well as time to explore them on air.
Yeah,
and he hasn't got to rush from headline to headline as he does in Dead Ringers.
There was that lovely Kyrgyzstan thread that was running through it. It was like William Hague as the Foreign Secretary, and then when they asked for a visit from the Queen, he said, "I think you're punching a bit above your weight, aren't you?" He said that she barely visits Poland, which I thought was just fantastic, you know. But and then they end up sending Lionel Blair or asking him if he'll go.
No, it was Neil Kinnock on that.
That was Neil Kinnock. That was it. Yeah, sorry.
Yes. That didn't work quite so well for me, but I understood the gag.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought maybe it could have done with an extra, but I am being hugely picky, and I think anything that takes any kind of portion of a point away gets added straight back for using the word terpsichore, which I thought, which immediately put me in mind of Ronnie Barker, because I don't know which comedy it was, but one of the ones that he was in, I think it was Open All Hours, and he said to Granville, "Can you stop this terpsichore?"
But for me it was even funnier because it was in a Middle Eastern accent. People would have to hear the context, but there's terpsichore. Not wishing to be offensive, it's just the fact that it came from nowhere.
I just think if you can get that into your comedy script, you're a winner.
Absolutely. And I think moments before he'd been talking about Jewish settlements on the West Bank. You know, if you can get the two in the same paragraph, you really are doing well.
You're an old song and dance pro.
Yes.
But you're right. Let's put some numbers on it then. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, I decided it was going to be 4, and then I hear myself praising it, and I'm wondering if even 4 is slightly mean. I'm not sure. Oh, blow it. Yeah, I'll give it 4.5 because, yes,
right.
Throw caution to the wind. That's the kind of wild man of rock I am. 4.5 for Bill Dare and his creation.
That's bizarre because I had no hesitation in giving it a 4.5 because I just
wow.
I just really just loved it. Just thought it was great. It was fantastic. Like I say, there wasn't a bit of fat on it. It you know, you didn't sit there looking at your watch and thinking, "Oh, is this going to end anytime soon?" The writing was really tight. The impressions were subtle. They were accurate, and they were more than impressions. It was acting, wasn't it? As you rightly said. You know, it felt like it was being professionally put on and. But just very, very funny. Very funny. I mean, laugh out loud moments all through for me. So that's a 9 out of 10 for the Secret World.
And we are so hugely grateful to Robin for that.
Yeah,
so,
Robin, thanks, mate.
You can come back again.
If you bring a suggestion,
make more suggestions. Yeah,
bring a suggestion with you as well. So for episode 200.
So. I mean, who knew that we would get to 200?
To be honest with you, the round we had after episode 1, it was a touch and go whether we get to 2, wouldn't it, really? But
absolutely. I thought we ought to put on the slab something really classic. In the past, we've done, radio classics like, and this was, I think, that maybe the first or the second Christmas we were doing. It wasn't a big one in terms of noughts on the end, but like Hancock's Half Hour. We did one Christmas.
Turkey feet and chips.
Yeah. No, it is actually a certain Monty and a certain Python got together.
Yeah, no, that's inspired, mate. Yeah, definitely. Have you got any? Because this is the series, isn't it? And of course, everybody talks about the films, but nobody talks about the series, which of course.
Well, yeah, I thought we're going in at the ground floor. Forgive me if it's a bit obvious, but I was intrigued to see, and I'm not sure I've ever seen Series 1, Episode 1, and even if I've seen it, it can't be too bad. Can it?
Right.
See it a second time.
Well, we can see whether they hit the ground running or whether they hit the ground with a big splat, can't we? We don't. We're on Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeart Radio, Spotify, YouTube. We're all over the place now. In fact, if we're not in the place where you think we should be, tell us, because we'll take giant strides, which is what I'm wearing right now. We'll take.
You thought you'd get a sartorial reference in anyway.
We'll take giant strides to rectify it and put it on there. But don't forget, our full back catalogue of 198 episodes is there waiting for your delight and delectation as well.
Absolutely. And it would be to our delight if you would share your delight with us by giving us a nice juicy star rating on Apple Podcast / iTunes. That'd be fabulous. With a bit of blurb attached would be nice. Tell your friends, as I'm wont to say, not least to my girlfriend's daughter. And I like to think she goes to school and she is actually telling her friends, not necessarily about the Comedy Slab, but it's just something I say to her. I don't know where I got it from, but it's just a payoff. Instead of saying goodbye, I say, tell your friends. Who recommended us, as the posh fire brigade say in Northwood. And I don't know where that came from either. And I've done all the right recommendations, but in the reverse order to what I normally do. So I've completely, banjaxed myself. But let's say, do follow us on Twitter. We are at Comedy Slab, naturally enough, and also our Facebook page is at Comedy Slab too. If you could like that and follow us, as I say, on Twitter, that'd be fab.
So we'll see you in episode 200. If you can join us then, that would be lovely when we're having a look at Monty Python. And as you make your way out, as Alan Carr would say, mind the yucca.